gonna bite you. having spent the night at National Emergency Management Agency monitoring the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona. Today we are going to bring you the latest update with respect to Tropical Storm Fiona. And I have with me the Senior Met Officer at SCASPA, Mr. Elmo Burke, who is going to bring you the latest update with respect to the storm.
Good morning, Lesroy.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, viewing audience. Good morning, residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. As of 8 o'clock this morning, Tropical Storm Fiona was located 16.1 degrees north, 63.4 degrees west, or 95 miles to the southwest of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Tropical Storm Fiona had sustained winds of 60 miles per hour and was moving in a westerly direction at 13 miles per hour away from us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. As such, the tropical storm warning was discontinued for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis as of 8 a.m. this morning. I repeat, tropical storm warning has been discontinued effective 8 a.m. today. However, the weather conditions are gonna persist for today. Today, we are gonna be experiencing mostly cloudy conditions with showers with a moderate chance of thunderstorm. Conditions are expected to gradually improve as we move into the night. Winds are forecast to be between 12 to 23 miles per hour with higher gusts, while seas are forecast to be 7 to 13 feet, and as such, a small craft warning remains in effect. Due to the additional rainfall that is potentially expected, we are anticipating at this moment 1 to 3 potential inches of rainfall, and as such, a flash flood watch remains in effect at this moment. We are asking the general public to exercise caution in areas that are known to flash flooding, especially the known guts here in St. Kitts and Nevis at this time.
Okay, with respect to Mr. Burke, where Tropical Storm Fiona is at this moment, could you tell us? And is it expected to grow stronger, to develop into a hurricane?
Yes, it is. The center, as I indicated, is to our southwest. However, the center is moving away from us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Based on the current forecast that we are looking at, we anticipate it to be developed into a hurricane as it traverses the Caribbean Sea away from us. And again, I repeat, away from us. Nonetheless, the chilling moisture and instability on the back end of the storm is what is going to be influencing the weather conditions this morning and into the afternoon. As I said, conditions are going to remain mostly cloudy with showers and moderate chance of thunderstorm during the morning and gradually improving as we move into the night.
So that means that, well, you mentioned earlier that weather is dynamic, and so we escaped the full brunt of what was coming to us.
Yes, we did. We were fortunate in this case.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Burke, for your update. And we thank the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis for, of course, complying with all the precautionary measures to keep themselves safe during the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to the general public for heeding the advice and the information provided by us here at the Met Office in conjunction with the National Disaster Management Agency. Thanks.
Thank you. I would now invite Mr. George Gilbert, and Mr. Gilbert is the Director of Public Works Department. He is also the chair of the Damage Assessment and Recovery Subcommittee in the National Disaster Plan. Mr. Gilbert. Right, Mr. Gilbert, can you give us a report in terms of, you've been out in the field this morning, of course. Could you give us a report in terms of the damage assessment and what are some of the things that you saw? Because that is going to be important in terms of the recovery. Right.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all in Radio Land and other platform. A pleasant good morning to you. It's a bright and new day, I must start with. We started out this morning from the NEMA headquarters, and then we traversed west. We went down to Old Road Bay. There was nothing there of concern. The rocks are in place, and it is actually serving the purpose it was intended to. We continue right on to Deep Bay, we went to Sandy Point, Deep Bay, Pump Bay, and then we came right around to Lodge, Keyon, nothing to mention of. But then we went over to Frigate Bay, over to Marriott Angeles area, nothing to talk about there. Then we went over to Southeast Peninsula, right down to Banana Bay. Then we went over to Majors Bay, nothing to make mention of. And we came over the hill, Potato Bay, back into Bastille. And when we came into Bastille, we actually did a tree, an evergreen tree in a property at Picayune Street in Newtown, which fell into one of those small streets. It is blocking the street currently. When we went there this morning, it was raining. So what we are going to do, Public Works, along with the fire department, we'll team up and we will go there and we will actually get it clear as soon as it is possible. Now, it's a large tree, but most of it, 90% of it, is in a property. So we have to get permission to go in and cut and clear and that. But one of the challenge along the road is the garbage bins. The garbage bins are all thrown into the road, apparently from the wind, and also the banners. Some of the banners are down and are actually flapping around. So in future, I think that it should be a recommendation that whenever we see these storms are coming, these banners should be removed. And there are other signs which are up, like the political signs and other large billboards are still up, and some of them are flapping at the moment. So as soon as it is clear, we encourage the people who the boards belongs to go and remove them, set them aside, so that at least if we have another pending storm, at least we wouldn't have that challenge to deal with.
And people should secure their garbage bins.
People should secure their garbage bin on their property.
So that they're not, garbage is strewn all over the place and they do not become missiles.
Yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But then generally it was a clear, not much sand or debris, which is on the road, and we are happy for that at the moment.
Okay. So basically the report has been a good one in terms of, as I mentioned before, that we have been spared the full brunt of the force of Tropical Storm Fiona, and for that we can be grateful. Thank you so much, Mr. Gilbert, for your report and for your assessment of the damage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
I now will invite Mr. Colin Brown. He is the Control and Operations and Protection Manager at the St. Kitts Electricity Company, what is known as SCELEC. Of course, we know electricity plays an important part during any storm, and so we would ask Mr. Brown to give us the report from SCELEC and what took place during the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona.
Morning, Mr. Williams.
Good morning, sir.
Pleasure being here once again on behalf of SCELEC.
Good to have you again.
Thank you. We are happy to report that the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona has not severely impacted electricity service in St. Kitts. At present, our service level is at 90%. We have no major outages on the system. However, we do have 5 moderate outages. I will list them shortly, and as well, between 70 and 100 minor outages, single homes or less than 5 persons impacted. The major areas presently being affected by outages are challenges to East-West Farm in the first instance, Bird Rock Industrial Area, as well as Mons Heights in Bird Rock. We also have an outage in Sandy Point, Central Sandy Point in the Mount Idle area, and 1 or 2 other smaller outages in the St. Peter's area. But generally speaking, considering what we were apprehensive as to the extent of the damage it could have been at the pre-strike meeting, we are happy that the impact was much less severe and that the service levels to most of our customers was maintained. As I said, 90% service levels at this time.
Did you have any downed poles?
Yes, we did. At present, we have counted 6 down pole reports. One vehicle incident caused down pole report on the Frigate Bay Road, as well as a down pole in Bird Rock, 1 in Old Road Fairchilds, 1 in the Shadwell Gardens area, and 1 in the St. Peter's New Road area. So we did respond to 2 of those prior to the suspension of restoration operations yesterday evening. Planted and tied up 1 and then moved 1 other out of the road. And then the other 3, while not impeding traffic, since they were not impeding traffic, there was no, it was not purposeful to go out in the storm and respond. So those 3 are remaining to be addressed this morning.
Okay. And what would you say to people in terms of venturing out? Because these are live wires,
yes,
aren't they?
In the first instance, I would say do not venture out until the NEOC and NEMA issues the all clear order. Prior to that, for your safety, as well as for the safety of those essential personnel who have to venture out, we ask you to remain at home, stay off the roads, and leave as much space and room for essential service to operate while maintaining as much safety as possible for yourself. In particular, to Skelec infrastructure, please treat all down distribution equipment, poles, lines, transformers, as well as the overhead distribution equipment of our sister utilities, the cable, Digicel Flow. Treat all down lines as energized. Do not interfere with them, do not cut them, do not attempt to move them. What we ask you to do, if you do observe them, make a report to the NEOC, to Skelec's emergency hotline, or the other utility providers. Exercise extreme caution when venturing out. Be observant of whether there are lines across your yard. We've had a few reports of that. Lines on your vehicles, lines on your gates.
Well, Mr. Brown, we want to thank you so much for the work that Skelec has done. Earlier you mentioned that Skelec would keep the lights on, and for the most part, Skelec kept their promise by keeping the lights on throughout the storm. And so for that, I think the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis, well, St. Kitts, are very grateful.
St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, St. Kitts and Nevis. We have Nevlec. We have Nevlec in Nevis. I suppose Mr. Dyer will give a report on that. But thank you.
Your thanks are appreciated, and I accept them on behalf of our hard-working team at Skelec, those who worked at our fixed facilities, those who ventured out in the field, those who worked from home, and all persons who are part of the Skelec team who supported in the preparation and response. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are now going to invite Inspector Irving Bradshaw, and Inspector Bradshaw will be representing the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, and he's going to give us the security update. Yes. Okay, Inspector Bradshaw, could you tell us in terms of security during the passage of the storm, did you have any security issues at all? Any traffic incidents, any?
Good morning, all. Well, I must say that fortunately that we have not received any reports of any violence nor traffic incidents throughout the passage. I can say it's a very happy moment because the condition of the road is very, very, very bad in terms of water and some areas, you know, we have some debris and stuff. Yes, for now.
Okay. So basically there were no traffic accidents and you received no reports of any issues pertaining to security?
None whatsoever.
Okay, so there was peace and order
very much.
throughout this storm?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
there's very little to report on.
Very, very little. You see, what we did initially was we had our patrols out in each district. We advised persons to get off the streets because we don't know what to expect. And they adhered, and the bars and other businesses were closed very early, and persons were able to get off the street very early. So that prevented a lot of these incidents from occurring.
Good. So people really complied with the law?
Yes.
And people sheltered in place during the passage of the storm?
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much, Inspector. And you will continue to monitor, of course, and to do your best, of course, with providing us with any security update if it happens.
Yes. One more thing. There, in the area of Halfwitchy, there is this puddle of water, a large puddle of water in the road. I want to advise road users to take the time while driving. Rain is still falling, but in that particular area, please take your time and drive. We want to prevent all accidents. Yes, thank you again.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we are now going to have Mr. Brian Dyer join us virtually. And Mr. Dyer is the director of the Nevis Disaster Management Department. Mr. Dyer is going to give us an update on Nevis and what has happened there during the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona. Mr. Dyer, over to you.
Hi, good morning, Lesroy, and good morning to your listening audiences, whether by video or audio. On Nevis, we have experienced persistent light rain from last evening, and that was interspersed with a few moderate showers. However, the impact was not significant with regards to flooding. There was no reports of flooding. And however, the gusty winds affected the operations at the NEVLEC, the Nevis Electricity Company. We had two outages, one that affected their substation, which was triggered by high winds affecting their lines. Some areas, such as some areas of Gingerland and Newcastle, are still without electrical power at this time, but the company NEVLEC is working feverishly to get those corrected. With regards to vehicular traffic, the police department, the fire services, and the St. Nevis Defense Force did roving services throughout the period of impact, and there were no reports of any injuries or accidents from those entities. With regards to the inspection, we have observed that there's no significant wave action on the western side of the island, and also at the Charleston port, there's no significant wave action or swells in that area. We also observed there's no significant beach erosion along the Pinnis Beach area. We, however, noted one tree that toppled over in the Pinnis area, and that will be taken care of later today by the Public Works Department. The business community, we have received several calls from the business community asking about the all clear. I am certain that this will be given very shortly, as we have been removed from the tropical storm warning list. So that will be given shortly. With regards to rainfall activity, we monitored our flood management system, and at Morgan Estate, we had 10.60 millimeters in the last 12 hours. On Spring Hill in the north, we had 13.30 millimeters. At Cades Bay, also in the northwest, we had 17.40 millimeters of rainfall. And in the north at Nesbitt Plantation, we had 9.10 millimeters. I want to say a special thank you to the motorists who kept off the streets during the impact. And I would like to give a cautionary measure as well. Even though the okay would come shortly, the road conditions are still treacherous. We have water sheet flow on the streets. There are some puddles. So I want to caution the pedestrians and vehicular motorists alike to drive with due intention and look out for each other. With regards to ferry operations, the water taxis are already in operation, as that area is sheltered and there's no significant wave action in that area as well. However, we still want to give a cautionary measure, as there's still a note in the weather forecast with regards to small craft operators. Again, we want to say a special thank you to all who supported the EOC operations here in Nevis, the police department, the fire department, the disaster management staff, and our community emergency response team members. They did a phenomenal job, and we want to give them all the kudos for their support during this difficult time and for their sacrifices as well. As we continue throughout the day, we expect the rains to persist. So we advise persons, if you do not have any real interest of coming out, you can remain at home, as the services of the NEVLEC and our floor and Digicel are conducting their assessments, and they need all the room available on the street to perform their duties. So again, I want to say a special thank you to everyone who supported the effort, and we want to continue to monitor our reports from the Met Services and Disaster Management as we're in the peak of the hurricane season, and continue to be vigilant and ensure that your disaster plans are in place and are ready to be executed at any time. So again, from Nevis, we want to say a special thank you. And thank you also to the Minister, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who visited us here at the EOC to provide the extra moral support and phoned several times to keep the team going. So a special thank you also to his support and leadership. Thank you very much.
In studio, but I know that there was an island-wide power outage in Nevis. Has the electricity been fully restored over on Nevis?
Calls from Newcastle and some areas of Gingerland that reported are still without electrical power. But NEVLEC are feverishly working on those areas as we speak.
if power is fully restored over on Nevis, I do know that during the passage of the storm that you had an island-wide outage.
All right, here in Nevis, we did experience an island-wide outage as the electrical company Nevis reported damage to the substation at the Prospect plant. However, we have seen some areas being restored. The outages that we have received notice of recently are still in the Newcastle area and also in the Gingerland area. There are some pockets that are still without electrical service. However, the NEVLEC team is working on those issues to get them resolved as soon as possible.
So much. Thank you for the work that you have done over there in Nevis, you and your team. Thank you very much. I now want to invite Mr. Abdir Samuel, our National Disaster Coordinator and the Chairman at the National Emergency Operations Center. Mr. Samuel, could you give us the update on the NEOC?
Good morning, Mr. Williams, and good morning to all the listeners, viewers, all over St. Kitts and Nevis, and also in the diaspora. So we have reached at a critical time during the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona. At the present moment here at the NEOC, we have heard from the stakeholders here present. The assessment team were deployed this morning very early, and based on that assessment, you would have seen the reports that have been generated for the general public. I just want to share a few more reports from other stakeholders, such as Water Department, telecommunications service providers. For example, allow me to begin with the water, Mr. Williams. So the Water Department would have reported that as of last night, most water were turned off in an effort to protect the wells, as we discussed, Mr. Williams. And I'm just trying to find the reports here, Mr. Williams, real quickly. I just had it as usual. Nature, good. So yes. All right, so I would have great. Mr. Williams, Water Department Director would have indicated that water supply was turned off in most areas last night as a precaution to protect system components from damage. This also coincided with our usual routine for water rationing. We spoke about that in the previous briefing. However, good news, as of 8:30 this morning, crews mobilized in the Sadlers area to Newton Ground area, and supply is already being restored in this area. So thanks to the Water Department crew for that. Crews will be mobilizing in other area once the all clear is given. I also know I want to shift now to the telecommunication service providers. The cable would have indicated that initial review of the network status indicators reveal no major issues. We need to deploy a portable generator to the Calypso Bay and assign teams to check Sandy Point and West Farm. Generally, all other areas seems to be okay. Assessment and first response teams are on standby to commence operations once the all clear is given. Then we would have heard from Flo. Flo would have indicated that 7 cell sites would have gone down on Nevis. They're all back online. However, we got a further update from Flo that 4 of the cell sites on Nevis are down at the moment, and the technicians are investigating. Then we would have heard from Digicel. Digicel would have indicated that 1 site on Nevis was impacted by theft. The equipment has since been replaced and under active management. 2 other sites are off islands and their technician offline, and our technicians are investigating. So to the public, this is the report, and I want to take this opportunity to thank them again for the resilience that they have displayed over the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona. The fact that we were able to have electricity through the night, we were able to have cable in most areas, internet services, and also connectivity through the mobile service providers in particular and landline providers, I think speaks volume for St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Williams, I just want to shift now to the airport. So the airport is on track for reopening at 12 p.m. today. We have been in constant discussions with the airport management. So the assessment teams are carrying out the assessment at the moment, and the other teams are the other teams, maintenance team, are looking at the navigation equipment that has to be reassembled and put in place to support the landing and takeoff of aircraft. I also came off the phone with the management of the AA airline, who themselves are readying up themselves for the arrival of the AA flight this afternoon. Our understanding is that the flight will leave Miami at 12 and will be arriving in St. Kitts approximately 3 p.m. this afternoon. So I think that is some welcoming news as we seek to restore normalcy into the country. In terms of reopening of business, we have not yet issued an all clear. Let me be exclusively open with you. We have not issued an all clear. At the present moment, we think it's critical for essential services to be given the opportunity to operate and provide some services. We are requesting for some business places, essential service providers, supermarkets, pharmacies, to be able to consider reopening during the midday hour today. So around 12 o'clock today, Mr. Williams, I think it will give us some time to look at the 11 a.m. update so that we can further continue to advise the general public and a safe way to return the country back to a sense of normalcy. It's very important.
You mentioned the airport. What about our seaport, ferry service and all of that? Yes. Do you have any update on that?
Yes. So at the ports, based on the assessment that was provided, we were made aware that the ports, there have not been any major impact to the ports. So the ports as well, as of 12 p.m., should resume operations as well, should be opened.
Ferry service?
Ferry service, and also. But as Mr. Dyer said...
The waters are not rough still?
Well, the waters are not rough based on the assessment that was done, but they are choppy. They're a bit choppy. So we are relying on the experience of the captains and the ferry service providers to be able to do those assessments and exercise responsibility. Our understanding is that some of the ferry services in the Reggae Beach and Wally area have resumed. We spoke with one or two of them who are confident that the weather condition is favorable for them to operate. The assessment was done as well, and the team here is also confident of that. We are also looking, based on the assessment, the transportation, the ground transportation, I think that too, we are comfortable that there could be some resemblance of, the restarting operation as well. We are quite comfortable with what we are seeing. However, based on the fact that we still have a flash flood warning, then we are asking those motorists, as the previous presenter did, to exercise caution. And Mr. Williams, we now turn to the tourism sector. The tourism sector, an assessment was done by Ms. Golda Franks, and we want to thank Golda Franks at St. Kitts Tourism Authority and her team, who would have contacted the hotels, and there have been no major impact to the hotels in particular. So for that, we are also thankful, as we need to rebuild again, bring the country to a sense of normalcy as well, and we spoke about that in the previous presentation. So with that said, I think we have covered. Yesterday there were some concerns raised by in the fisher community, where some assessment was done in the northern part of the island, and they would have seen a number of vessels out at sea. We are hoping that they would have secured their vessels, as we see that these seas are getting a little bit more choppier. So I think the fisher folks are very experienced in this regard, and we have to commend them for adhering to the advisory provided. Mr. Williams, when it comes to the other sectors, I think we are comfortable that we are going in the right direction in terms of our advisory for restoring the country. We want to thank everybody who has prayed for the storm to be diverted away from us. What we experiencing are the remnants of the passage of the storm. Again, an all clear has not yet been given. However, I want to take this opportunity of gratification to express my gratitude to all members who have been here at the NEOC, from the police, from the NEMA staff, Defense Force, Fire Department, Public Works Department, yours truly, Mr. Leslie William Meskena, yes. I hope you got a bit of a rest last night.
Somewhat, but
Okay,
it's
right.
not the ideal, but...
Yes, but you know, it's all in national duty. It's part of our, you know, our business. So I want to thank you as well, Mr. Williams. I want to thank the St. Kitts, Nevis and Willow Amateur Radio Society. They're always here. I want to thank the Island Constables who did the administrative work here to support us as well. And I think I have covered everybody. Skellig, who were here, they actually slept here all night because we wanted to make sure that the citizens had power. So we wanted to thank them for that. And I also want to express the gratitude on behalf of Cabinet Secretary Dr. Marcus Natter. He asked me to convey to the team as well as the Honorable Prime Minister. I think the Honorable Prime Minister was on board since 5:17 this morning. He got on his phone and we were updating him and keeping him abreast. He was quite interested in making sure that, you know, first everybody here was safe and then the general citizens were receiving the necessary assistance required and making sure we had the resources available to carry out our work. So gratitude is extended on behalf of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, as well as Dr. Marcus Natter personally, who has been with us through the night, on the phone, remotely, etc. I also want to inform the general public, Mr. Williams, that the NEOC will stand down to a remote operation as of 12 p.m. today. We will go in a remote operational mode. So we will be able to go home now, take some good showers, and probably get some sleep, and we will be working remotely until we are confident that the storm has passed away from us and St. Kitts and Nevis is quite safe. So again, Mr. Williams, we want to thank everybody, but we have to thank the general public in particular for adhering to all the advisories. We want to thank all the media houses. I hope you do as well at the end, how we normally do, for sharing the information. I want to thank ZIZ in particular, Mr. Lester Hanley and John James and the team for the continuous support for us to be able to provide these updates. So with that said, we are thankful that we have been spared from this particular storm. I have been in communication with Antigua and my other colleagues and Sidimo over through the night. Antigua, they experienced some heavy wind, but they are generally safe, and so has been most of our Caribbean colleagues. So we will continue to monitor the progress of the storm. I'm asking the general public to continue to monitor the storm. I would like for the general public to continue to prepare as we are still in the peak of the hurricane season. The hurricane season is not ended. Let us use this as a dry run for any future threats of cyclonic activity that may impact St. Kitts and Nevis. So if you don't have a hurricane plan, use this opportunity to develop one. If you do have one, update your plan, and let us use this experience to be able to build on our resiliency. So I'm comfortable, Mr. Williams, that we can do a great job in protecting and safeguarding the citizens and residents if indeed we become under the threat of any cyclonic hazard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel. And we continue to remember those countries that are still in the path of Tropical Storm Fiona. I understand that it is expected to be upgraded to a hurricane, and so those countries that are still in the pathway of the storm and later on the hurricane, that we pray for them that they will of course have their preparations, but at the very same time that they will be spared the full brunt as well of these tropical cyclones. And of course for those countries that were impacted already much more than we were, we also keep them in our prayers also.
Yeah, and I want to also acknowledge and thank SEDEMA and the Caribbean donor partner groups. They were actually on standby and ready to give St. Kitts and Nevis the necessary support in terms of resources, relief supplies, etc., for us to be able to, recover quickly from this potential impact.
Right. So thank you very much, Mr. Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Okay, I want to thank all of our citizens and residents for tuning in to our briefing on the passage of Tropical Storm Fiona. As you heard, the general assessment has been a fair one, and we were spared the full brunt of the tropical storm, and that we are grateful for. So thank you very much for tuning in, joining us for our briefing here at the National Emergency Management Agency. Continue to remain safe and to adhere to all the guidelines and the laws for your own security and safety. Thank you. I am Les Roy Williams.